Rev up your engines!
Steve Tahesa, Scotty, how can I become your customer? I live here in Houston. Okay, well, there's a lottery system that I have. Actually, you can just email me for appointments. I work downtown Houston as long as you bring the car to me. I work on all kinds of cars. I actually deal more with people than with cars because there are a few cars I won't work on. Like I won't work on Ferraris or Lamborghinis anymore. I did once in a while, but they were such a pain between the people that owned them and the cars themselves and getting parts. But as long as you're a normal human being and you want honest repair, I'll deal with you. There's a lot of crazy people out there. I've had to weed a few of them out over the years. But as long as you're a normal human being, you can email me and set up a time to let me work on your car. Hello. Forget it for the next couple of weeks. It's Christmas holidays. Already booked up. Try to get a hold of me after New Year's. Kutats says, Scotty, what do you think of hydrogen engines? Toyota and Mazda have merged. I see Mazda are interested in Toyota's hydrogen technology. What they are is, they're not hydrogen engines. They're hydrogen fuel cells. And what fuel cells do is they generate electricity. They use hydrogen as the input. And then through the fuel cell, they create electricity, and the byproducts is water. Water vapor comes out of them, and a little carbon dioxide. So they're very efficient machines. And it's interesting technology. They are actually electric cars because the hydrogen fuel cell just creates electricity, and then the electricity drives the car. So they're electric cars. Instead of using a battery system, they use a hydrogen fuel cell. They've been around a long time. I mean, the space system all had them because they used that to generate electricity, and the astronauts drank the water. So, it was a win-win situation there. Well, we got plenty of water to drink, so you don't have to worry about that. But the thing is, their fuel is hydrogen. Hydrogen is a very explosive gas. It's dangerous stuff. They'd have to be refueling stations and all that. And no one knows if that'll ever come to pass, that people will actually be doing that. But they do have one big advantage in that a regular electric car that runs on battery, the batteries weigh a lot. They have to be recharged all the time, and that's a real pain in the butt. With the hydrogen cars, you never charge it because they don't have batteries. The hydrogen is used to create electricity, so they generate their own electricity. But like I said, hydrogen, where's the hydrogen going to come from? Everything has downsides. That's why we use gasoline. It pollutes, but it's very easy to get and cheap enough to get, and there's stations all over the place, so there's a big infrastructure. Tony E says, should I buy a helicopter for transportation if I can afford one? Yeah, sure, if you know how to fly one. They're not very easy to fly. My son did it, airborne. He loved flying around helicopters. Helicopters are very expensive, though, if you're going to get a good one. And do you really need a helicopter, My son always wanted to buy one, and he found out what he cost. He said, maybe one day I'll get a light plane or something to play around with, because the helicopters were just too expensive, and the maintenance on them is insane. It's a real rich man's game. That's why I see rich people flying around helicopters. I don't know how rich you are. Marco Rivera says, Scotty got a 96 C1500. Has a small backfire when steady in the truck at freeway speeds and won't pass smog. I have a PO 420 code. I spent a lot of money trying to fix it for 4 years. The inefficient catalytic converter, I can guarantee you, is popping up because you have a small backfire. That's how it starts. Now, if you had enough small backfires, it can actually ruin the catalytic converter. Small backfires are always stinkers. You're saying it's a 96, old as the hill, and you're talking about highway speed. The first thing I would have done, you can do a wet and dry compression of the engine, because if the engine's worn, and you see that when you do the dry compression, it's say 160, and then you do a wet and add a little bit of oil, and it goes up to like 190. Piston rings are worn out, and you're gonna have to rebuild the engine. Now, another thing that often happens with age is sometimes the valve springs go. When you're at highway speeds, and the valve springs have to be really good because those valves are opening and closing super fast. That means it needs a valve job, and I've seen that. If you find somebody who does a road test, a mechanic like myself, with this big fancy scan tool, and it only trips it at certain RPMs at high speeds, it could easily needs a valve job. At that age, you might need an engine. Just replace the engine to fix it correctly. Because you get to that age, and at highway speeds, it could be the valves. I've seen the valves wear out, and cars do exactly that. Foreman Colossus says, how do I start an engine that's sat for years? It's an AMX390. How to? Okay. First thing you want to do, you want to take all the spark plugs out. Then get a little can of spray oil, WD-40, whatever, any kind of oil that's penetrating oil. Spray it in all the holes. Let it sit overnight. That soaks it in case anything's rusted. Get a long extension bar and a socket that fits on the front crank bolt. Turn the engine over. Turn it over 3 or 4 times. If you can, great. That means that it's not locked up. Then you get a new battery. Make sure the engine's full of oil. The only thing you care about is oil. Take off the air filter, spray a little starter fluid, and crank it all up. Of course, after you put the spark plugs back in. And if it starts up, great. You know, then if it's in a car and you got old gas, you're going to have to change the gas and all that out. But at least you know that the thing runs. And if it's an old carbureted vehicles, you can bypass the whole gas tank and just take the fuel line off and then just stick that in any kind of container that's got a little fuel line coming out of it by gravity. And then you'll know the fuel's going in there, and you can then clean the tank and the lines and all that stuff. Trevor Ballantine says, I got an '08 Highlander. It rattles at startup. What's up? You can get tons of rattling noises. Anytime you get a noise, especially a rattle, you got to pinpoint where that noise is coming from. But Toyotas aren't known for making noises. Could be your catalytic converter's damaged, because when you start up, the exhaust flows through it, and if that substrata inside there that has the platinum that burns hydrocarbons inside the catalytic converter is broken, it'll rattle when you start it up. Just get under there, see the exhaust, and you see the catalytic converter. Hit it with a hammer. Rubber hammer is best. If it rattles, you know it's breaking down. Now, if your check engine light doesn't come on, it doesn't overheat, it goes fine on the highway, it's not plugged up, it'll go 70, 80 miles an hour, you can live with a rattle, it's not going to hurt anything. Now, what you want to pray it isn't is engine noise, because, say, your variable valve timing chain is going, or the variable valve timing actuator is going bad, that can rattle, and that's bad. Pinpoint where the noise is coming from first. That's what you always want to do with the noise. Pray it's just a catalytic converter. If it isn't running bad, you can live with that until it breaks and then clogs up, then you got to replace it, and they're not cheap. Dragonfire 0700 says, how can you pinpoint a bad bearing on a 2000 Ford Taurus? Bearings will make specific noises when they wear out, like wheel bearings. If it's a wheel bearing, the faster you go, the faster it roars. Or roar, roar, roar. You hear the roar the faster that you go. Go like 55 miles an hour when there's no one around, and weave to the left, and weave to the right. And then when you weave to the right, the noise will quiet down. That'll mean you know it's the left front one. If it's a bearing anywhere else, you get listening devices. That's the easiest thing. I have ultrasonic ones that are really cool because they got little pinpoint needle heads, and I can just put on a pair of headphones and I can stomp them on each bearing area. When I hear the noise the loudest, I know that's what it is. You can also get stethoscopes to try to listen to see what it is, to see which bearing is. And say you think it's like a water pump or an alternator bearing, you can just take the fan belt off. If the noise goes away, okay, you know, whatever that belt drives is making a noise, and figure it out that way. Cameron Ping. Scotty, what do you think of the old Chrysler 4.0 straight sixes? Thinking about buying a 99 Jeep Cherokee with 170,000 miles on it, no rust. Okay, those were very good engines. Everybody knows me, I'm not a fan of Chrysler. But those straight sixes now, they were gas hogs. They didn't get very good gas mileage. But if you find one that doesn't have rust and you don't mind the poor gas mileage, go ahead and buy it if it's running good and shifting good. Realize they had very weak automatic transmissions too. Check the transmission out. Now, if it's a standard transmission and it runs good, go ahead and buy it. They were bulletproof. The automatics were a little bit weak, but those straight six-cylinder engines could last a really long time. I mean, they generally don't make them anymore because they got pretty bad gas mileage, and the V6s fit in a smaller space, have more horsepower, get better gas mileage. So, you know, the straight sixes are kind of the past. Every once in a while, somebody brings the straight six engine back just to, you know, play around with it. But for all intents and purposes, most of the companies are going to V6 configurations because of extra horsepower, extra torque, and that they get better gas mileage, and they're a smaller configuration where they fit into spaces easier. Miriam Marquis says, I got an '05 Corolla. It doesn't overheat, but the radiator fan won't turn on unless the AC is on. Realize there's two systems that turn your cooling fans on your radiator. When you turn your AC on and the compressor comes on, then that often automatically turns on your cooling fans on your radiator, because that's also the cooling fans for the AC condenser that's in front of the radiator. But there's another system. If you don't have the AC on, or if you don't even have AC, there is a sensor on your car. And when the radiator temperature gets beyond a certain parameter, that sensor tells the computer to turn the fans on. Then they turn the fans on. Then when it gets below a certain parameter, it turns the fan off using that switch. So replace that switch. Pray it's just a switch. A lot of times it's the main computer circuit that's gone. Now, a lot of times the main computer or the other circuits will work fine, the car will run fine, but it won't work that way. And if you got to replace a computer on an old car like that, that's a lot of money. My advice is just turn the AC on. I got a lot of customers, the old one, they just turn the AC on the whole time. And like, you might say, well, I live up north and it's cold. You turn on the AC and turn the heat on at the same time, and that you're not going to notice any different, because heat is much stronger than AC. And when you're driving any normal car anyways, when you're driving in the winter, you put it on defrost, your computer automatically turns the AC and the heat on, because AC is dry air, and that's so your windows don't fog. Remember, back in the day when I was young, cars didn't have AC, hardly any cars had AC. And when I lived up in Niagara Falls, you turn the heat on, a lot of times it would fog the window up because it was hot, but it was still so humid in Niagara Falls that it would still fog up. But with AC and heat on at the same time on a defroster, they won't. So most cars turn the AC and the heat on at the same time anyway, by design. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.